Welcome to MTN Outdoors.
Welcome everybody to this week's episode of MTN Outdoors. I'm once again your guide, Andy Curtis. And last weekend was the unofficial start of summer here in Montana, which means a couple of things. One, it's almost fire season. I know we've been getting a lot of rain here recently, and we'll continue to see rain fall across the state for a little bit, but before too long, fires will be popping up all across Montana. I don't know when exactly that'll start, but I do know that a new law passed in Helena recently will help our wildland firefighters do their job a little safer this summer. We'll take a look at that coming up in today's episode. Two, it being summer means it's bear season once again. And I know you know to be bear aware when recreating outside here in Montana, but are you aware of bears' intelligence? We'll see how clever the animals can be in Red Lodge. And three, the weather getting warmer means more tourists coming into the state. That's kind of a double-edged sword. There's a lot of positives that having a big tourism industry brings here to Montana, but there are a few downsides as well. Mainly, some people not behaving so great in our national parks. And unfortunately, that's where we're starting today's episode. MTN's Jackie Coffin takes us down to Yellowstone, where a tourist is being blamed for the death of a bison calf.
It's a magical time of year to visit Yellowstone's Lamar Valley. I was just there last week watching bison herds with their calves migrating across the river. And with visitors flocking to this area, it can sadly lead to conflicts between human and wildlife.
A picture is worth 1,000 words. In this picture, taken in Yellowstone's Lamar Valley, tells a troubling story.
And somebody had made a comment that they saw a man pull the calf out. Thought he was doing the right thing. He thought he was saving this calf.
Carrie Paulson and Pam Strickland are seasoned park visitors. Both were visiting the park separately on Saturday when they stumbled upon a scene they never hoped to see.
The ranger was there. They were trying to reunite the calf with the mother. We didn't see the mother when we were there at all.
They explain this man, who still hasn't been publicly identified, saw a bison calf struggling in the river as its herd was crossing and tried to help it out of the river. But then the calf was displaying troubling behavior.
And we noticed the bison calf, the red dog, surrounded by, I don't know, probably 6 people or so who were taking pictures with it and petting it. It was going up to cars.
Strickland says park rangers arrived and tried to haze the animal back into the herd, but the herd was too far gone, leading rangers to euthanize the calf.
At first I was, angry again of human going in and messing with wildlife.
This event is similar to a 2016 incident when a tourist put a bison calf in his car thinking it looked cold. Rangers had to kill that one too.
It's a thing that happens way too often.
Many are now criticizing the park, wondering why the calf couldn't be saved and taken to an animal sanctuary. The park now receiving so many questions, they've created a webpage to respond, explaining federal and state regulations prohibit the transport of bison unless those bison are going to meat processing or scientific research facilities.
There is a lot of fear around brucellosis.
A difficult decision and a scene both women will remember for years to come.
I don't think that there's anything the park service could have done differently at all.
In Yellowstone, Jackie Coffin, MTN News.
Another very welcome sign of summer is the Beartooth Highway opening up. For a little while, that is. We'll throw things back down to MTN's Jackie Coffin, who takes us on the most scenic highway in America.
The gates are open and the Beartooth Highway is back for another season. And to welcome visitors back to one of the best drives in America, the Red Lodge Chamber of Commerce treated some residents to a special ride that also takes you back in time.
For hundreds of years, the Beartooth Pass was used by Native Americans, miners, hunters, trappers, explorers, and scouts, and in 1936, it opened to drivers looking for a path to Yellowstone National Park.
The buses used to run this road up to Yellowstone Park.
As the Beartooth Pass celebrated another season, a blast from the past was on display. as two historic buses that transported visitors through Yellowstone Park nearly 100 years ago made the trek once again.
We came up to celebrate the opening of the Beartooth Highway in 2023.
Yeah.
And it's just a fantastic opportunity to see what's going on.
The buses from 1925 and 1937 are carefully preserved by the Buses of Yellowstone Preservation Trust.
You travel 55, 60 miles an hour, you miss a lot of stuff. These buses go up the highway about 15 to 20 miles an hour.
And they greeted a line of eager travelers, waiting for the big moment and passage through. Heading up the highway first were cars full of backcountry skiers.
Should find some deep stuff still.
I'm pretty happy to be skiing no matter what. We're thinking there's going to be a little more snow than there is, but I know we'll have a look.
And while modern cars might be faster, bus riders say slowing down to a century-old pace lets you take in all of the mountain splendor.
It was really cool being able to stand up and really capture all the details and all the scenery. It has been a little bit of a life goal.
The Red Lodge Chamber of Commerce said it's a heartening sight after a hard year.
We're incredibly positive. We think there's a lot of people out there from last year that didn't get to come and enjoy. We're back in business. It's going to be fun.
In Red Lodge, Jackie Coffin, MTN News.
And Glacier National Park is reminding visitors that vehicle reservations are required for people entering the park by car or even motorcycle from the west entrance. Visitors who do not already have a vehicle reservation can book 24 hours in advance at 8 a.m. on reservation.gov the day before their visit. But visitors with lodging, camping, or commercial activity reservations do not need a vehicle reservation. They can use the confirmation email to access the portion of the park for which their activity is booked. And remember, visitors do not need a vehicle pass if entering from the east entrance up until July 1st. And sticking with the camping theme for the first part of our show today, people are starting to pitch their tents all across the state right now. But there are a few things keeping campsites from fully opening up. MTN's Phil Van Pelt has the details.
The summer season is camping season in Montana, but as many gear up to head outdoors, there may be a delay in places like right here in Red Lodge to getting to some of your favorite spots.
It's hard to remove the forest as being part of Red Lodge's economy.
Outdoor recreation in Montana is plentiful. It draws in $2.5 billion annually and is responsible for almost 5% of the state's income. But last year's floods leave more questions than answers about this year's camping availability.
Classically, what we aim for is the weekend before Memorial Day. We try to get them open a little earlier, and some we have been able to get open.
A better outcome than Annette Smits would have guessed 6 months ago.
We're probably looking at more like 70 to 80% of our campgrounds will open on time or even a little bit early. Some of the road accesses in there might be a little rougher, a little bit more primitive, and you'll see some minor scouring. But overall, at least in terms of developed recreation campgrounds, we fared relatively well.
Bison campground host Sam Martinson admits he wasn't sure what to expect this year.
I just wasn't sure what the cleanup was going to be like. And a lot of the cleanup, for the most part, was done here. So, I gave a lot of credit to the organization that does this.
Flooding isn't the only thing delaying openings. A bear recently closed Greeno Lake.
You just have to be bear smart, make sure your bear spray is close. You got to make noise, talk, whistle if you're up on trails.
And make sure you protect your food.
When they're at the campground, for instance, we have these bear boxes up here where they can store food safely.
The other 20% of campgrounds still up in the air include East Rosebud and Woodbine near Nye. But ultimately, as summer kicks off, Montanans will just have to continue to roll with the punches as they enjoy the beauty of the Treasure State.
It's Montana, it's the mountains. We have bears, weather happens. It's just being prepared when you're out there.
I'm hoping that people will be able to come up to these campgrounds, have the best time of their life.
In Red Lodge, Phil Van Pelt, MTN News.
And that brings us to this week's MTN Outdoors trivia question, which has to do with both camping and fires. So here we go. Now, when dealing with fire prevention, things should be as simple as possible. So today's trivia question is going to be a simple true or false. As you clean up your camp this summer and put out your campfire, should it be cold to the touch before you leave the area? Or is soaking it with water good enough to head back to civilization? Now, I know this shouldn't be a hard question, but I think you would be surprised how many people just don't get it. So think about this one, and we'll have the cold, hard facts for you when we come back.
We now return to MTN Outdoors.
Welcome back to MTN Outdoors, everybody. Thanks for sticking around with us. I'm Andy Curtis. Now, before the break, I asked you this week's MTN Outdoors trivia question. And in honor of summer unofficially starting here in the state, today's question has to do with both camping and fires. Two things that really get us Montanans talking. So just in case you missed it, here it is one more time. And today's question is a simple one, but I think you'd be surprised how many people don't get it right. As you clean up your camp this summer and put out your campfire, should it be cold to the touch before you leave the area, or is just soaking it with water good enough before you head back to civilization? Now, this is just a true or false question, and if you said the answer is true, then you are right on the money and very responsible. Now, the steps to completely put out a campfire are: first, douse the fire with at least 1 bucket of water. Then stir it with a shovel, stick, anything you have handy. Then add another bucket of water. Stir it again. And yes, it should be cold to the touch before you leave. Now, the only thing that might get us Montanans talking more than the subject of fires and camping is grizzly bears. And Wyoming's celebrity grizzly bear just woke up for the summer. MTN's Andrea Lutz has our story.
The wait is over. Wyoming's famous grizzly bear heroine has arrived.
She's a conundrum because she draws an unbelievable crowd.
Wyoming wildlife guide Bo Weldon with Eco Tour Adventures was there as the grizzly matriarch 399 emerged from her den. This year with just 1 cub.
Well, I've been, very fortunate enough to either be on tour working, or, as you might imagine, somebody who loves wildlife as me is just up there on my day off.
He says the yearly occurrence always draws quite the spectacle, so much so that days prior this year, park rangers in Grand Teton started to place cones in the area to brace for crowds.
When she appeared officially, especially at Bear Jams for her, there's so much speculation. Like when she came out with all 4 cubs, it is like oral histories being exchanged.
And perhaps that's why her fame has taken off the way it has. 399 is 27 years old, and her bloodline is strong in the greater Yellowstone ecosystem. Year after year, she's seen parading her young near busy roads, all to a tourist's delight.
I think she offers an opportunity for people to see a wild grizzly bear in the wild. And I think that those moments can be really powerful for people.
Her fame now comes with iconic social media accounts, followers from all over the world, even a handful of children's books. She really turned heads in 2020, emerging with 4 cubs.
I've seen photographer friends that I haven't seen out here for a couple years because they've come back for her. I love seeing her, and I think she offers an incredible value to Wyoming and Grand Teton National Park.
A bear charming visitors and nurturing her next generation.
Well, back here in Montana, bears are also performing, so to speak, for crowds in Red Lodge to showcase their intelligence. MTN's Kelsey Marison has our story.
Be bear aware. It's a phrase many Montanans have heard time and time again. But today at the Yellowstone Wildlife Sanctuary in Red Lodge, it was the bear's awareness being tested to show the public how smart these animals truly are.
We want to make our children bear aware.
An important safety lesson was taught at the Yellowstone Wildlife Sanctuary in Red Lodge on Saturday.
I thought it'd be so fun, and it
has been, and very educational.
It's now officially bear season, and Montana is known bear country, meaning residents need to always be aware when exploring the wilderness.
In our town especially, there are black bears that come into town, there are grizzlies that come into town. So we like to do this every year for the community to give them a chance to learn what not to do, what to do about bears.
A campsite was set up inside of the bear enclosure at the sanctuary to give the public an idea of how crafty these animals can be.
What do I do if I'm out there and I actually see a bear?
Bear spray trainings also took place.
Always carry a bear spray with you. They work 90% of the time, and they also work on other dangerous wildlife as well.
And the sanctuary's education manager, Eden Wandra, says she is happy to offer tips regarding bear safety.
Avoid at all costs bears getting food. Attracting bears towards your tent. You can yell things like, "Hey bear, stay away bear," you know, put your arms up high, and they'll usually just go away. They're like, they don't want to mess with that.
Something on many people's minds following the recent closure of Greeno Lake just south of Red Lodge after a grizzly bear sighting.
All right, we gotta go.
Wandra says she isn't aware of any sightings in the area since then, but still wants the public to be ready.
We are helping people stay safe and also keeping our bears safe.
And the public is grateful for the opportunity to learn.
Considering this one sprayed himself with bear spray at one time, yeah, we're here for his education.
I sprayed it in our little barn thing. I just sprayed it around.
And these two came out coughing and wheezing, and what happened?
In Red Lodge, Kelsey Marison, MTN News.
All right, stick around everybody, because when we come back, we'll take a closer look at our drier future this summer and a new law passed in Helena that should help our firefighters do what they do best. There's plenty more MTN Outdoors to come right after this.
We now return to MTN Outdoors.
Now, I know we've gotten a lot of rain here all across the state recently, and we'll get some more, which can kind of be a pain for your outdoor activities. But let's be honest, it's good news. For example, in the Helena area, the Bureau of Reclamation says Canyon Ferry is about 10 feet below full pool. On the Rocky Mountain front, the Gibson Reservoir is in similar shape, about 10 feet below full. Both of these reservoirs are expected to fill this summer though, and boaters will be able to launch all ramps on Tiber Reservoir, south of Chester. The reservoir level there is slightly below normal, but is expected to completely fill this summer. And up at the state capitol, a law was recently passed that should keep the skies clear over wildfires this summer, allowing our wildland firefighters to do their job. MTN's Jonathan Ambarian has the details.
When a wind-driven wildfire was burning here on Mount Helena last August, the aerial firefighting operations were delayed for about 10 minutes because of an unauthorized drone flying in the area. Leaders say Montana's existing laws made it challenging to handle that type of incident.
Yeah, there was definitely some ambiguity.
Previously, there was a civil penalty for operating a drone that interfered with aerial firefighting, based on the costs of the disruption. Senate Bill 219 creates a criminal misdemeanor with a fine of up to $1,500, and the violator could still be charged with firefighting costs.
This provides law enforcement the jurisdiction and discretion to make a professional determination of obstruction, and then leaves it to the prosecuting authority to follow through.
Montana DNRC says even small drones have a huge impact on what firefighters can do.
Firefighting aircraft include lead planes, helicopters, air tankers, and they fly as low as 150 feet above the ground, which is the same altitude as many hobbyist drones fly. So incident commanders will have to ground that aircraft to avoid potential mid-air collisions with drones, which really affects the safety and efficiency of the overall firefighting effort.
The National Interagency Fire Center officially reports 15 public drone incursions nationwide in 2022, including the Mount Helena fire. And Lewis and Clark County Sheriff Leo Dutton said they also had issues with a drone at the Mattstaff fire last summer.
Oftentimes there are firefighters that are positioned, everything is orchestrated, and if you let the fire get out of control, homes are at risk. More importantly, lives are at risk.
The federal government also has its own rules, establishing even larger penalties. Leaders are issuing a reminder to all drone users as we move into wildfire season.
If you fly your drone into an area where we have aerial suppression efforts going, we'll use whatever means necessary to take that drone out.
SB 219 had an immediate effective date, so the new law will be in effect for this year's wildfire season. In Helena, Jonathan Amberian, MTN News.
Well, luckily, we're not in the middle of a full-blown 5-alarm fire season right now here in Montana. But up in Canada, that's a different story. MTN Outdoors meteorologist Curtis Grevenance shows us why our neighbors to the north aren't so lucky right now and what exactly they're dealing with.
In Western Canada, wildfires have raged in parts of Alberta and British Columbia, resulting in smoke spreading across Canada, Montana, and all the way to the East Coast. Total acreage burned so far this year is 2,000 times more than last year at this point. Wildfire season in the boreal forest and this region typically begins in May, but not this explosively. Back in May of 2016, another dubious start to the wildfire season began with Fort McMurray, Alberta being evacuated and subsequently burned. This time of year is dangerous for wildfires because the snow melts and vegetation does not turn green yet. The amount of snowpack is critical, and this year was a very lean winter in Canada. The storm track this winter was farther south, with all-time record snow for many areas in the western United States. A similar situation happened in the winter of 1982 and 1983. This past winter broke many of the snowfall records from 82-83 in California and Utah. But at the same time, Environmental Canada climatologists proclaimed 1982-1983 the year without a winter, as most of Canada had above average temperatures and below average snow. Although very similar and comparable, the winter of 1982-83 was one of the first El Niño conditions reported, and this past winter was La Niña. Regardless, the storm track farther south contributed to an early wildfire season in Canada and has potential to limit the wildfire activity across much of the western United States this year. And now, you're a little more weather-wise.
Well, that should just about do it for us here this week at MTN Outdoors. Thank you for making me a part of your week. And let's take a look at today's MTN Outdoors brag board. Our video today comes from MTN's very own John Riley, who caught this predator of the sky doing some hunting at Spring Meadow Lake State Park just outside of Helena. Osprey are not a rare sight in the area, but catching one doing a dive into the water like this is. Thanks for the cool video, John. And if you're in the Helena area, stop by the park and see if you can catch this raptor in action yourself. All right, thanks again everybody for watching, and until next week, stay safe and I'll see you out there.